No, I've never done this before.
You got that front page?
Oh,
Yeah. just
Okay.
look at her.
that's a job.
I'll put it
You
back.
lost her?
Go.
There
Okay,
you
you
go.
ready?
Yep.
All right, call to order the Board of Library Trustees Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, April 5th, 2021. Roll call, please.
Trustee Meadow,
Here.
trustee Rule. Here. Trustee Smart,
Here.
trustee Suplet,
There.
trustee Tangney,
Here.
president Zip.
Here. Okay, was there any public comment? We get any emails or anything? No? Tim, good to see you.
Do I need to stand or?
Whatever you would like.
Okay. So yeah, I'm Jennifer Burrell. I noticed on the agenda that there was something about standing in solidarity with the Asian community. I was just curious if there were any plans to do any kind of bystander training, either with the staff or for the public. I think it actually, I did one at work a few weeks ago. It was very helpful. So just curious.
Thank you. Yeah. Think about it, yeah. Think about it. Okay, all right, thanks, John. Anything else? Anybody? Okay, we're good. All right, let's move, sorry, my glasses on. Let's move on to item 1, extension of the temporary policy due to COVID-19. One thing I just want to point out, by the way, just so everybody knows, on this one, there was a suggested motion on the back of it. We're a committee of the whole, so we won't be voting on it, but that's what the motion would be as it moves to the board meeting. So we go on to that. Okay.
Okay, so this is the same temporary policy that you guys have seen a number of times. We are looking for an extension through end of July. There are a few changes in this policy, one of which is the terminology. Instead of from phase 4, we're changing it to phases leading up to phase 5, being that now they interjected another intermediary phase with the phase 4 bridge phase. So that is one change. The other change, a couple of the other changes, the leave of absence, additional paid sick leave and expanded medical or family medical leave for specified reasons related to COVID-19 is outlined by the U.S. Department of Labor. That was in relation to the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, which was sunset on March 31st, so that no longer applies. But we will retain the expansion of discretionary leave and leave of absence at the approval of the executive director, which was the second bullet point under the leave of absence.
Mike, can I just jump in here? I thought that was extended till September 30th.
It was optionally extended.
It was, yes,
We
right.
had,
So like, I think March was optional too, so I just want to make sure.
yeah, so we sunset it March 31st. We only had a couple people take
Yeah.
advantage of it. And so we've pretty much are doing other leave of absence or sick time.
Right, I just, it wasn't in the case, so I just wanted to make sure that.
Then under bereavement and personal leave, personal time is not restricted to half-hour increments. We took that out because that was eliminated in the personal leave policy update from December. And then those last 4 bullet points there, basically, instead of not allowing each of those things, we are making those determined by the executive director. And that's just because now with the information about transfer of COVID-19 across surfaces is the data is showing that that's far less likely. And as we open up, we would like to open some of these things up when the time comes. So those we're changing to be determined by the director. So those were the major changes in the policies. Do you guys have any questions?
Now, just to make sure we understand this and make it a record too, that these are policies that are designed only for this particular time period. Once we get to, is it phase 5? Once we fully get to phase 5, everything reverts back to the original policies, the way that they were all set up.
That's right.
Correct. Okay. Want to make sure it's understanding that. And there has been talk, because some of the rates have been going up too, of things being pulled back actually. So would that affect anything that we're doing here?
Well, that's why really the 4 bullet points are the ones, those last 4 would be the ones that would be substantial service changes that we might pull back. But That's why at the discretion of the executive director makes sense, because we might allow it in the near future, but right now we're not, and we can continue to not allow those things until the time comes. So probably, these would probably remain not allowed until we hit that bridge phase, which that's gonna be a little bit slow, I think, because I think they said 70% of residents 65 and over have to be vaccinated before making it to that bridge phase, annual increase in
I think
COVID.
we fit that, but it's the other, we're not.
Yeah, the increase in COVID
Yeah.
cases is still up there, so. So we'll probably do a little bit with the increase.
Okay. Are there any other questions or changes that anybody on the board would like to see changed? Mr. Mike? No? Okay. Okay. Very good. We'll bring that one then to official, the board will come at the end of the month. Okay, let's move on to item 2, the proposed revisions to policy 7.004 meetings. Yes, I'm a little confused with this one. There's 2 policies 7.004 on here.
Yes, so the first one is the new one.
First one's a new one, the second one, the shorter one was what was the existing, it is the existing.
Correct.
Yes.
Can I ask a question, or do you want to go through it first?
You can ask a question.
Okay. On page 2, limitations. Number 5. Political rallies and or meetings organized for the purpose of urging action, such as voting for and against any candidate, party, position, question, or referendum. So we're banning that now? Is that what I'm getting from this? Or-
Right, and we had all of that anyway. That's for like a political rally.
Well, that's not totally true. And I'm going to tell you why. If you read this, the League of Women Voters would fall within this definition. Many of the other nonprofits that we've had here for injustices would fall within this definition. So I have a little problem with number 5.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, we partner with several groups that we've had in the past, as you know. I believe they would fall under number 5.
This is for promotion of one candidate.
Well, it doesn't say that.
So maybe we need to
It
clarify
says
that.
candidate, party, position, that could be affordable housing. Okay, so it's making all these things inclusive.
Okay.
It's not, so I think that needs some work.
Shannon, do you want to speak to this at all?
Sure, the attorney put this in verbatim. It does not exclude us from having candidate forums. It was specifically so candidates could not come in rally for themselves or for a referendum. So we did go back and forth with the attorney.
All right, I think that's the way it's written, position, question, or referendum. It doesn't say it's to a candidate. It says it's a commas there, so.
Correct, but it did not exclude forward for any of the legal or that's informational.
So I disagree with that. If you go out to their website, they have 5 or 6 social positions that they are taking action on, and they actually discussed in their forum that they did not mind with us. So I think we might want to relook at this.
John has his hand up.
John?
Yeah, I have to actually take it a whole nother level on, and when I'm looking at all 7 of these limitations, I'm curious as to why they would exist. Working from number 5, I don't know how it is that we as a library can censor the use of a public space for any of those purposes, even if it's an individual candidate. I just don't know how we can do that in good conscience. Things like fundraising or commercial and for-profit purposes, perhaps we can do that, but if I'm read further on, we allow people to charge an entrance fee to attend a program that's in that meeting room. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, there wasn't, was it in this one or was it in the next one?
The next one.
The next one kind of overlaps into this one.
So if we are allowing a not-for-profit charge an entrance fee for a program in one of our public spaces, how can we justify not allowing a not-for-profit to fundraise, because that's what the entrance fee would be, or a commercial or for-profit to charge an entrance fee? I mean, I just see this fraught with a lot of contradiction.
Yeah, I'm going to actually agree with John. When I got to this, I hit that first one, and I kind of went, why? You know, the whole commercial point of it. I understand we don't want to become a business where we got people all over the place and going crazy and making a lot of noise. We have the other library policies, you know, that would kind of hold that down. But if somebody wants to come in and they want to rent this room out, you know, for doing something where they want to give product demonstrations, you know, for the particular product or something like that. I'm not, especially since with the makerspace, we're going to be we're actively talking about allowing commercial entities to come in there. We don't want to make full production, and I get that, that's in the other part of it. We don't do full production, but we are allowing businesses to come in there and do things. And so why are we doing it? It kind of goes to the contradictions, John, that you were talking about. Why are we saying in this we're not allowing this?
That the business part of it is actually a carryover from the current policy. So that is our existing policy. So that's part of it, but can definitely revisit that.
And that's fine. And I figured it probably did get brought over to the policy. It doesn't mean that we don't need to look at it. We can't look at it right now and say, hey, are we really doing everything for the community? And the businesses are part of the community too.
And taxpayers.
And taxpayers.
Yeah, and number two is obvious. Anything that's disruptive, sure, you can put a limitation on that. But social or private parties, I mean, the park district allows their space to be used for social and private parties. How is it that we can say we don't?
Availability of the room is also a concern.
Well, you know, there's other ways around that, and that is if you can have a birthday party, but if you're bringing food in, then there's a fee for that. If you're having it catered, well, then there's a fee for that, and the fees can be used to help coordinate and limit use so that it's within the realm of reason for your people who work for you, Mike. But just to say outright you can't do it, I just even with religious worship services, ceremonies, or prayer services, I mean, why? I'm at a loss. I'll stop there.
Did you refer or look at the ALA meeting room, their policies on use of meeting rooms?
Yeah, I believe that was
Okay.
part of this report from it.
Well, I just want to say one other thing too. I mean, John is correct. The religious part, we actually have programs that celebrate religious holidays for other cultures. Do we not?
We do.
So are we not gonna?
This is specifically worship services. So
You know how you get around this though, is don't rent the room out to the same group weekly.
Well, that's it, right?
And so you don't even have to say it because we're not gonna, a service is gonna be weekly. And you can say you get around that by saying a group can only rent the room out no more frequently than monthly unless approved by the executive director.
Or once a quarter.
Yeah, I mean, so you can get around it without having to specifically state that, yeah.
So that the space is available for other residents. I mean, that's.
I want a Girl Scout troop in here, but they have weekly meetings, so that's how you don't have Girl Scouts and a Girl Scouts meeting.
Anybody else? I have a few more things on the point. Does anybody else want to have anything else on this point? Okay. I'm just going to kind of go down the list here. When I went to general regulations, 2 organizations may not ask for personal information from program attendees. If it's their program, I'm not quite sure how we're stopping them from getting, their names and their email addresses. those type of things. So I have a little bit of a concern with that. And again, I'm just talking, so anybody has any thoughts, let's go. 16, whatever, circle 16, by allowing use of meters, letters, afterwards, the activity should be pointed to meter. Yes, absolutely. And I do like on both of these, that they must put in all the advertisements, about how it's not affiliated with that. Now, this other thing too, it says on 18, on page 4, on request, persons, organizations, random rooms provide staff with such materials, pamphlets, and or information related to its proposed usage under this policy. So is that talking about, because I know they have to sign up for it, they have to say what it's being used for. Is that what we're talking about? Or are we actually saying that here's what we're handing out to people, and we want to check everything that goes out?
I believe it's handouts, and Shannon, you can.
Correct, we trying to put this in here specifically for if we were doing it upon request, if it was a religious ceremony. That we could ask, we could request to see something if we thought that they were having an worship or religious ceremony here.
Oh, so that goes back to that other section.
That was added by the attorney.
Yeah, I think that's a slippery slope. I have to take a disagreement with, I can see real problems with that.
And I don't want us becoming the censorship, of having to go through all this.
But we are.
Sometimes I wonder if attorneys really understand, some of these things that ALA is, that as guidance has put out, because again, the statement up there, that you have there is very important about, right above that, about, it's not affiliated with the library. It does, just because they're using the room doesn't mean that the library is endorsing that content. And that's a critical statement to put in.
That's very critical. Did you have some?
Well, I just say, number 17 is, I kind of saw as a little slippery slope also, about how we're going to be monitoring their meetings.
Yeah.
Or willing.
Maybe we need to say, so the second half of that third paragraph, the premises to ensure compliance with library regulations and policies. I mean, that's perfectly fine. Maybe instead of saying that we're monitoring, it's saying that they must abide by all library policies and regulations or something to that effect. And just by saying that means we're paying attention.
Yeah.
If you do something, that goes against it, we're gonna notice. John, sorry. John.
Yeah, no, I just raised my hand. So yeah, I would agree with the number 17 as well, is that we're not going to monitor. We can attend, but we're not monitoring. And going back to Carol's point about the groups using the library must, there should be a letter D. You can add a letter D that there can be no solicitation outside the meeting room proper, either before or after the event, before, during, or after the event. I mean, what people do in that room is their business, provided that it's within the policy of the library and the law. We just don't want them disrupting the activity of the rest of the library.
One thing, I just remember, was trying to think of the policy we have at Gail Borden, and I believe our policy states that all meetings must be open to the public. It doesn't necessarily mean someone's from the public's gonna attend the condo board meeting, but by stating that, now you get rid of the birthday parties and all that, and then you don't have to say it.
Right. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, you don't have to say no birthday parties and all that, you just say, all meetings will be subject to, they have to be open to the public.
The park district, let's be honest, they're in the business of birthday parties. I mean, there's a whole section for
Yeah, no,
birthday
we don't
parties,
want
like that's
parties
a
here.
whole line item, I'm sure, in their budget probably, so, like, I don't think that we're doing that with our space. And so I don't know that we need to go to that extent.
Although we've thought about it as, like years ago, not recently, as far as, gee, could we put on birthday party, as a income.
Right, oh,
You know, and,
We
you know, and then we
talked about-
realized, you know, I think we talked to our children's librarians about it, they said, are you kidding? You know, I mean, in other words, they would be giving me the stories and, you know, we'd have a cake. So I think that was a discussion about 5 years ago that didn't go anywhere.
I can tell you that my studio does a Muddy Buddies program where we read stories and we do a project based on the theme of the story.
Yeah.
And it's a thing. Well, back before COVID, but you know, someday it'll happen.
Okay, let's get a couple other things here. Charges, and I know that we're doing the charges because, you know, we're trying to recoup some of the costs. But then I started looking at, you know, on 5 there, you know, the equipment, and the question I put down there was, sure, they can use all these types of things, that's part of what they're paying for. Who sets those up though? Or is our staff setting that up, setting all those things up, or do they come in? We set that up. Is there something that should be in there that they, you know, if they're doing it, you know, we'll give them all the stuff, but they need to come in and set it up too. Because plus, we want to set up in the way that works best for Zion, for whatever the function is going to be.
I don't know if you want to do that.
No? Okay,
No.
that's fine. That's why I just kind of threw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, charge enough so that we're covering, our staff's time, but, yeah, now I have to say, you know, one of our rooms in the branch, that's kind of a do-it-yourself, but the big room like this, I think it would be very
We
chaotic.
don't want the public accessing the AV system.
Gotcha.
That's
Okay,
on the steps.
fine. Just want to bring it up. John? you have something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Greg in the sense that I wouldn't allow anybody to do this on their own because of liability issues. I mean, all you need is one person pinching their finger in a table leg and you've got a lawsuit. But that means you have to charge setup and tear down fees. And $25, I don't even know what that fee is for what duration of time. That's not going to cover setup and tear down. So I think we need to revisit the fee structure so that there's an understanding with respect to setup, tear down, refreshments, no refreshments, and the charge that you identify, is that for every 30 minutes? Is that for an hour? Is that for the duration of the day? I can't tell.
I think there's 2 things that we have to kind of look at there. You know, one, we're not trying to make a profit. That's clearly not what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that all the costs are recouped. Now, we do know that part of the taxes that we get in here, I mean, it just goes towards that cost, goes towards anything, like, you know, people reshelving the books and doing all that kind of, doing the function of running the library. So part of that is function during the library, but we do need to make sure, I kind of want to make sure that these fees make sense. And we understand what they're all about and why we're charging them too, that we're not just kind of throwing out a number here and you know, exactly are we trying to accomplish by having these fees.
Yeah, these.
And a deposit.
Here, we charge a deposit for our party room, because then it also ensures that they leave it cleaned up. If you don't, they leave a huge mess sometimes, right? But we charge we have a refundable, what we call damage deposit, which we maintain until the room's done and we make sure nothing's been broken or that there's not, you know, stuff spilled all over the carpet or whatever.
That's what I was gonna bring up, is like what happens if somebody brings in
So we actually,
purple Kool-Aid. I don't think we're allowed alcohol on the premises, but like I was thinking red wine and staining the carpet, you know, or something like that, like what?
Yeah, we do say that they'll be billed at a replacement cost for any damage to furnishings and equipment, but we don't get that stuff. So.
Well, and I think the other thing about our deposit is that it's also is contingent upon the renter following the policies of the library. So while they may leave the room clean, if they didn't follow the policies of the library in the process and disrupted activities of the library, well, then the executive director can decide to keep their deposit.
Can I go back for 1 second?
Sure.
I just want to point out under general regulations, number 1, the second sentence there, all meetings must be open to the public and free of charge.
Oh,
So we do have that in there.
Good,
So I just want
yeah.
to clarify that.
Well, then, that takes really care of parties because people.
Well, and then there's that sentence that kind of like John was talking about, donations may not be solicited as a condition of attendance. Okay, as a condition of attendance. Yeah, that's the key point there. They can, I think they need to be allowed to ask for donations if they want to, I suppose, but it can't be a requirement.
Essentially, they can't charge to attend.
Right,
Donation can be optional.
donation to donation.
One other thing you might want to consider, you're charging for $25 for the piano. But, what's the size of that piano? Is that a 7-foot?
I don't.
If you had to replace that piano, if you replace this Steinway piano, you're talking $90,000. You might want to consider having a refundable deposit on the piano. I think we have it might be $125 or $150 that someone wants to use the piano that we charge. Just to, hey, this is serious, and, I know if nothing's happened, I hate to create a policy, something like that, if you've had it for many, many years, but I just am bringing it up. You mean, if you don't know the value of that piano, if you did replace it with a Steinway, it would be pushing 100,000. If it's a 7-foot, or I know it's not a 9-foot, but it could be 7-foot.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I bet, that'd be about 80,000, 90,000, I bet. So. And sometimes people don't realize it when the piano's a piano. Well, no, it's not. Steinway's a Steinway.
I had just one more thing I want to say, because it actually goes all the way back to page 1. Just like nitpicky again. Eligibility 3, the last one, reservations must be made at least 1 week in advance. I think we should also put in there, or based on the executive director's discretion. Because I'm just thinking, what if something happens, some type of situation comes up where somebody needs a meeting room quickly, or something like that. Let's just get something just in case type of thing. Oh, the other thing too, you've got a lot of things in here where the executive director has to make the decision. Is that the best way to do that? Or is there a certain group of people that it's okay for them to do it also?
To approve some of these things or override some of these things?
Yeah.
You could say administration,
Yeah, maybe administration, like one of the members of the administration.
and then it's not falling on your shoulders all the time.
Right.
Well, like even just in the instance of like, okay, if we added the, in case of, somebody is supposed to have a meeting at the park district, I'm just making stuff up, and I don't know, the electricity goes out and they need to find a new location that afternoon, and you're on vacation. You
Right,
took
yeah.
the day off, like, well, too bad, Mike's gone.
Right.
So maybe administrative, as long as it's shared and not like, just thinking, if you get hit by a bus,
Right.
you're. Never mind. Strike that. Right.
Okay, any other comments? That's all my questions or comments. Any comments from anybody else? A lot there. Probably, I know this is, relatively straightforward type of thing. It's just talking about the meeting room, but it brought up a lot of good conversations I think that we had to have, and it kind of goes forward with some of the other things that.
Yeah, I agree. And this was a very different policy than it was before. There's a lot of detail in there, and so I appreciate the input and the conversation, because that helps us with direction.
I think a meeting room policy is one of the hardest policies really to put together. It really is.
Okay, all right, great. Let's move on to item 3, the conference room and digital media lab policy.
So this is a new policy for our conference rooms and our studios downstairs. So we did not have a separate policy for these. And so we wanted to have something on our, in our policy manual for those. You'll see a lot of the same stuff based on the meeting room policy compared over this one. But there are a few things in here that are specific to meeting rooms. We can carry over the comments that you have from this one into this policy as well for the things that. Yeah, the first one. But we had to address any other questions.
Well, I just want to say, I'm happy to see the occupancy levels, because I've been here many a time, and our 4 staff members on 2 here, when the kids are studying, and there ends up being like 30 kids in a room. I love this. This is great,
Especially now.
because I've been here and I've seen them struggle with that, so I love that.
Or would we put up, like in the rooms, do we put up a occupancy sign in there?
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually in the room or if it's on the website.
It's on
when you
the
sign
website.
up.
I would suggest that something in the room.
Yeah, it might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, because it.
Then
it's
your
like-
staff can point to it if
Right,
it's that.
Right, exactly. It's like,
Someone's
switch like that
violating.
said, those 30 people are supposed to be fine, we go. Okay, 25, you gotta come. You know, it's right there, right? Okay. Anything else on that one, anyone? All right. Let's keep moving on. We are now on to item 4, this is the makerspace policy.
Okay, another new policy, this is makerspace, as we're getting through our construction and I think day is coming up, we want to have a policy in place for makerspace. This is specific to this building. Of course, all of the library policies that apply here apply there, as like our code of conduct, stuff like that, but this one is specifically about makerspace equipment, and usage of the facility.
I was hoping that we'd have something in here specific to the commercial kitchen. I think something needs to be in here for the commercial kitchen.
Okay.
And I know that we probably need to figure out what that is, but to not have rules of the road about cleaning up your dishes or any kind of parameters about what they can and can't bring into the commercial kitchen. I think not having those in this is.
Yeah, no live animals.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I'm thinking of, but
Yeah, in relation to it, because I was looking at number 1, their customers must be told here's the behavioral, be in the makerspace without parents already, and I took out the question, even in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Do we need to have, separate thoughts on that?
You're right, yeah. I don't think we want a 12-year-old in there.
Yeah, I think it has to be.
Kitchen.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
I have a 12-year-old. Almost, he's 11, but
you would want that kitchen.
you want supervision.
Yeah.
is. John? Oh,
Yeah, so
hold on, John, hold on, sorry, John. Donna?
I just think that a lot of that will be answered in the paper. We're gonna have a separate waiver for the kitchen.
But I still think we should have policies in here. I mean, we're gonna have kids in there baking cookies that need to be, washed. I mean, there needs to be a lot of things. There's some things I think that are gonna be in the commercial kitchen that probably shouldn't be operated by children. Okay, I mean, that's, this is a dangerous place. This is gonna have professional stuff in it. This isn't gonna be, using their little kitchen set at home, to bake their Play-Doh cookies. I want to protect us, and I think we just need to have a fairly detailed policy for the kitchen.
Under use of equipment and materials, number 1, there does say certain tools will require proficiency requirements and/or completion waiver form prior to use. So my guess is that for kind of what you're talking about, Donna, there are going to be rules and everything that are going to be in here. So maybe we need to put something like on that first one, just kind of stating that, except, for different rules apply, see staff or anything. John, sorry, John.
And that's quite all right. I think we're all seeing a lot of things within the content of this draft policy, which makes me want to summarize by saying it's a great first place to start the conversation. But I think what I'm sensing and seeing personally is that this really truly needs to be overhauled. What I would like to see is I'd like to see policies from other maker spaces, library or otherwise, policies for other maker spaces, because it will help us rather than have to reinvent the wheel. But, you know, in addition to many of the things that folks have pointed out, I'll add, even in the preamble, the very introduction, the library wants customers of all sorts to be able to share the space. I think this needs a very close look at our communications professionals to make sure that we're using language that is reflective of who we are and is not, you know, not cliche or vernacular. Then the next sentence, to ensure fair and equal access, it shouldn't be considered a mass production fabrication facility. Well, probably shouldn't be considered a lot of things, but what is that sentence? You know, what's the point of, and I think that really we need a really closer look at by our communications professionals with respect to the entirety of this document. You know, we use the phrase unless received approval from makerspace staff. To me, that's not adequate. It has to be approval from the makerspace manager on site, not just any staff person that says it's okay that the 12-year-old is there. So those are the kinds of details, I think, and those aren't even details. Those are some of the umbrella comments that I would make. And with respect to the details that others are saying, I think if we could find another example or examples from which we could learn, that would help us move this process along. You know, the other observation is we don't ask for any waiver of liability. You know, so somebody can use any of the machinery that's there, but there's no reference to having signed a waiver, nor there is any reference that they'll be held responsible for any damage. So those should be signed forms at the start of if it's a class or if it's a start of a personal use. But I would say that those need to be part of this policy as well. Thank you.
Number one, under the use of equipment and materials, there is a comment about proficiency requirements and complete waiver form prior to use.
Right.
Now, I think that could be fleshed out a little bit more specifically, but at least it's in there.
And then under restrictions number 2, it does state that the users of makerspace accept financial responsibility for any and all damage caused to the makerspace or space beyond normal work.
Right, but this is, I think, something where I want the user to sign in writing in advance, given the liability and the cost of the equipment, that you know, they get it. It's not just a policy they were going to throw at them later, but they're upfront. They are in upfront with respect to their knowledge of liability and damage to equipment. And you know, the notion about certification of using the proper equipment says who? What certification? Is that an accreditation body? Is that who's doing the certification? I mean, it can't be enforced. The idea is nice, but it can't be enforced.
I think, John, you made a great suggestion. I think we've never had a makerspace before. We should learn from people who already have one, see those kinds of things. And I definitely agree. The waiver issue is every time we take a class in facilities, you have to sign a waiver. You have to do all those things before you even come in and sign up. So maybe that's the way you could do it, because you've got the great system to do that. You know?
The one thing,
We do have a waiver in the works. We're working with the attorney on it. People have to sign it before using the equipment. You had made another point that started. Yeah.
Oh, but just about the template. Like the template from other.
From other,
spaces.
yeah, we did review policies from surrounding libraries to come up with this policy.
Just a couple of things, and I'm wondering, are you thinking of maybe having people register and using the makerspace? I mean, there's gonna be people that are gonna use it a lot. And if they're coming in signing a waiver every single time, you know, there might be a registration process where they're registering and they sign the waiver at that time. The other thing I just wanna say is, I think my feeling is that the kitchen should be a separate policy. And because I don't think you're necessarily, I don't think I'm wrong, planning programs necessarily in the makerspace, but you definitely will be having cooking demonstrations in that kitchen. That will be library programs. So therefore, again, that takes precedence, just like it was in the meeting room. Library programs take precedence over that. So I think trying to combine all of that in here and age that you can use it and all this kind of stuff, it might be cleaner just to have a separate policy, even if it repeats some of the things in here. You know, and just for that commercial kitchen, because that is the unusual piece here. No library I know of that is going to have a kitchen like this. Yeah, in this area, please.
Andy, you have something?
So just a comment really, you know, I know that with my own studio and whatnot, oftentimes because things change, the language has to be a little bit more encompassing and less specific of like the kitchen space or like where you want to have something that are about equipment or whatever. And that it, you know, I don't know if we have drills in the other area or something like that, and somebody decides, you would not believe some of the things that people do. They are,
Sure.
I'm not supposed to put my hand in the saw? Huh, who knew? You like, and I mean, it sounds silly, but it happens. I don't, you know, I should turn the equipment off before I reach in because it's jammed. And it is a power tool and it seems jammed, but as soon as I unjam it, guess what? It's going to turn on and you could get injured. So I do understand some of it needs to be a little bit more all encompassing and maybe less specific. And this is going into our, you know, the general, and then the like general rules, right, of the library and of the makerspace, but then maybe the waiver itself becomes more dialed in, and that could change, you know, like where it says like we have a waiver you have to sign, that waiver may change because we've added a new piece of equipment or we've that kind of a thing, as opposed to putting it right here specifically. So,
You know, and I see this, you'll have something before we open, and in 6 months you may be adjusting it.
exactly,
You know,
Oh, yeah.
that's what I guess.
You know,
I'm trying to
because
say.
we won't know until you have the experience.
Carol had mentioned the waiver and having to sign one every time. The way we were planning the waiver is people would agree to the term, the waiver, and then that would be kept on file that person had agreed to it.
Yeah.
And possibly we were talking about issuing a different library card for those people that have already.
Oh, yeah, oh, that sounds
That's
good.
good.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
John?
Yeah, I think, you know, the notion of a maker space passport would be kind of cool. But the point that I was going to make is that this may be of real high interest to our insurance company. I mean, whatever it is that we come up with a policy here, we really need to run past your insurance people, Mike, so that they know the extent to which things are going on in the makerspace, and conversely, that we are trying to waive that liability and damage it as much as possible.
The insurance has been part of this conversation. Donna, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I've been in contact with them throughout this entire process. So they're part of the waiver. They're part of the policy. They're definitely involved already.
Is it possible, or maybe you haven't already thought of this? My one thought would be to have it renewed each year. So there's, you know, that January 1st deadline, or, you know, whatever other arbitrary date you want to have, but that everyone signs a new waiver yearly. So that gives you an opportunity, should new equipment come in or get changed out, to make sure that everyone has been made aware of those changes and that we're covered.
Well, if you have a card, issue a library card for a year, you know, and then it can be renewed, and then, you know, that could be another way to catch that.
Yeah, it goes expired after a year. That's what I did. That's what I did.
That's good.
Good thoughts. I had a couple things here, and actually, maybe it's also something you said here too. You're right, people will do some crazy things. And I've been in manufacturing all my adult life, and I've seen some people who should know better and just do some really, really silly things. So what that actually gets me to is safety guards on some of the, and I can't remember all the machines, I talking about that. Right. Do we have, or have we taken it to that account, that we're going to have guards, we're going to have safety measures on all these things?
Yeah, the laser cutters are enclosed. They're enclosed.
Okay.
It's like a printer almost.
Right.
And you can see it, but I think if you open the door, it shuts on.
Okay.
Oh,
So we just have to make sure with all the pieces of equipment that we have in there, that we have some type of, there's some type of safety guard with them. Because we're getting into some place that's a lot different, on, use of equipment and materials of 3, it talks about, please have, when they're bringing the stuff, that please have available a copy of the item material safety data sheet. I can't tell you how important that is. If somebody is bringing in something that's obnoxious or can explode and go on fire and something like that, we have to know, absolutely.
So it avoids any guarantees you have with the machinery a lot of times. The warranty will be expired if you do that in something.
Mike, are we getting any machinery that other libraries have not gotten? I mean, besides the commercial kitchen?
I don't think so. I mean,
Okay.
we do have a CNC machine. So that's, some of them, some makerspaces do have them. But it's just it's a small one.
Yeah, so we're not
That's probably the,
blazing the path here at this
Right.
point. Yeah, that's good.
everything else, vinyl cutter, 3D printers, laser cutters. Yeah, and then the CNC machine.
Yeah, and I'm just, I know we're not bringing it to the kiln, but I upcycle and I was at Goodwill at one point, and I'm walking around and somebody had donated, obviously gone through grandma's basement or something, and had donated glazes from the 1960s, 1970s. Those all had lead in them. And so like I had to get a hold of the manager and be like, look, I'm gonna be that person. You need to take these off and just take them to a hazardous waste. Like this, you can't sell these. And people people showed up at my studio with things like that, not knowing that it's, laws have changed, manufacturing has changed. So like I just reiterating what Greg said, that it's really important to know what materials are being brought in to even the kitchen,
We can't make an exception on that one. That's the liability.
People see stuff on YouTube and just because, you've all seen the idiot who just put their Apple iPhone in the blender to see if it was really, not able to be broken, then try to take it back to Apple and say it broke. Like, ask 10 people, you're gonna get 10 different answers.
Yeah, the last thing I kind of had here, I know we talked about, I think, in some of the other policies, but if I missed it, I apologize, but storing of materials, I think we had something specifically in there that we were not storing things.
I think that's in here, isn't it?
If there is, I missed it.
And if there isn't, you have to.
Yeah, I don't think we want to have anything in here, but
It's, for, customers are responsible for, that's different, sorry.
I don't think we want people leaving things over now. We're not a locker.
The other, and I'm not sure if it's in here or not, and maybe I've missed the nuance of it. But I know we were gonna have, like, with vinyl cutter, we were gonna have vinyl available for purchase at cost, right? I think it's important in that, if, like, let's say this is my sheet of vinyl and I only use this, but I don't think you're gonna keep this part for me for some other later date. I'm owed 3/4 of a sheet or a half sheet or whatever it might be. If I don't use it, it's gone, because that is something that people, well, last year I was here, 3 months ago I was here, and I didn't use all of my, whatever.
I think there's something in here about there's no refund for like partially used.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, and I
Yeah,
think I lost it.
there's something like that in here. I seem to remember, or in one of these policies.
What's in here?
I like to think about the patents too, if it's trying to copyright and all that kind of stuff too. Yeah, if somebody's in here trying to make something that's already patented, we know nothing.
I have another question, Mike.
Yes.
So we're gonna have, a schedule of how much stuff's gonna cost, right? Well, while I don't wanna put it in here, because it's gonna change with inflation or whatever, I think we should reference it in here very specifically, that there is going to be a schedule wherever we're gonna put it. So people really clearly understand that this is not free. Okay, but I don't wanna put the schedule in there because you'll change it all the time.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put I agree with you, Doug, I wouldn't put the amounts in here, because that can change on a dime. I mean, I know that at one point in my studio, talc there's a mine, a New York mining there's a mine in New York that produced talc. They ended up finding asbestos in that mine. So all of a sudden, we couldn't use New York talc, so we had to find a new place to get talc from, the whole industry. That became very expensive very quickly because it was a completely different kind. So things can change very, overnight. Within a month or so, the price of something can change very drastically. So,
You can just refer to a schedule,
yeah.
I'm fairly certain it's already referred to in our fees policy, because that's really where we have our scheduled fees for.
for all that.
Charges and stuff like that. I believe we have already made the change to include makerspace, or in the last go round, or it was, we got a draft of it, so I'll verify that. But that's really where that would be done.
And then if you're looking for other use of equipment and material to, that's the part of the second purpose, library does not offer refunds for materials used or for any remnant.
I thought I read that. Thank you. I missed it.
So that's out. All right, good. Another good conversation. Any other comments, thoughts? Anyone? Okay. All right, let's keep moving on. Let's go on to item 5, the Miller kitchen unit replacement.
Okay, so this is an informational kind of update on the Motorbiking unit replacement. When we brought this to you around budget time, we were talking about the Motorbiking unit and the replacement with a specific AN unit, which would basically sit in the same footprint as our current system and utilize pretty much the same mounts. There would have to be some changing done to make it fit, but it was the closest thing that was available. Since that time, they have discontinued that model and they've replaced it with a different model, which changes kind of how basically the footprint of that unit. And if we were to place it where our current unit is, it would hang off the side of the building, which I don't think is acceptable. So we've been going back and forth with the engineer, and they recommend we look at a custom unit, and we've done some preliminary pricing, and it actually comes out to about the same price as what the AN unit was. So I wanted to let you guys know that we're going to go out to bid for this starting Wednesday, and then we'll be. I have the schedule on the memo here as to what that project looks like. We'll be bringing it back to the board for selection.
Will that, in servicing it in the future, if we go for the custom design, custom always skip, well, now the filter doesn't fit, we have to have a custom filter. So like, is there a projected additional cost of having a custom unit for repairs in the future?
No, it's not completely custom. It's modules put together that make it a custom unit. So it's custom for our installation as opposed to an out of the box configuration. The nice thing about a custom unit is we can also get certain elements that we wouldn't have gotten with the AN unit. Right now, our system has, you can walk inside it and you could have access to all the equipment on the inside, which makes serviceability much easier, especially during winter months. And the AN unit did not have that. It was just a freestanding unit that was exposed. So the custom unit does give us some of that flexibility.
A lot of this stuff is component driven, so it's basically you pick this and that, and you can design it yourself. So it's not as much as you think. I understand where you're coming from.
The question I had in this was, so we're not going to start this project for the fall. That thing broke down last summer. So I mean, we're just going to deal with that.
Yeah,
Again.
we've been working with the contractor that maintains that unit. We're doing some things to get it through this next summer. We're hoping that it works. There's a long lead time on this equipment, so that's why we're doing it in fall. 16 weeks to manufacture it. So once we award it in May, they're going to begin building it, and then we'll do the swap in September.
Gotcha. All right, very good. All right, any more comments, questions on that one? Don't put it my 3 times. Okay. We are now on to item 6, the data and statistics reporting.
Okay, so this we're bringing back for further discussion on statistics and what the dashboard can and will look like in the future. We started the conversation at the board meeting last month. We wanted to continue this conversation. One of the things in this memo that I've updated is the proposed schedule of topics for 2021 for the supplemental report. So that will cover a number of different areas that I'd like your input on. And then the dashboard, as you saw it, pretty much at the last meeting, be looking for further input on that as well.
Comments, questions, Deb?
Yeah, can I just say one thing? And I think this actually would go very well in Donna's report. One of the things I do like that's on the dashboard today that is not in here, and that's okay, but is when Donna does her review of the year-to-date financials, we have that nice little chart of today's that kind of talks about projects that are going on right now and where we are in regards to the budget of those projects. I still would like to have some sort of review of those at the meeting level when we have, like a picker unit going on, whatever. Because I mean, that's a nice piece of material, but I agree, it certainly is not necessarily every month. But I just think it would be a nice answer if you could do that.
Sure. Good counsel there, thoughts? John?
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm agreeing with Trustee Smart. I'm not looking this as in place of those financial dashboards. I'm looking at it as complementing and revising the statistics and reporting on utilization. But I very much rely on the financial dashboards that are included in the executive director's report and that also get included later on. So I hope we're not going to lose those in the process. My observation here was that this is really neat. On the page with the pie charts, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, there's two words, program satisfaction. That's great to see that it's acknowledged, but I don't see where it's reported. And when we look then on the, I love the layout and the design, it's gorgeous. But if we look at the digital services report, 2 comments, customer praise, that's leading. Do our customers never complain? Do they never have recommendations? I mean, customer remarks, customer testimonials, sure, but you're leading your audience by using that kind of language. And then finally, if we go to the last field, virtual programming and appointments, again, everything's there, but customer satisfaction. So I'm still anxiously awaiting when we're going to begin to measure and report satisfaction of our users for the programs and services that we provide.
Something like, I've been on both ends of this now. There's a lot of data being asked, okay? And what we don't want to do is we don't want to start making this to where, every month, your team and everybody is staff is, they're all they're doing is worry about getting data together. Okay, they got jobs to do, right? And I understand where John is going here, and I agree. I want to know what satisfaction is going to. Are we doing the right thing? But is it becoming too much? Are there things that we can kind of, are anything that's redundant? I want to make sure that we get everything we want, but we're also not overburdening you and staff.
Well, that's why we're starting here, to understand what the board would like to see. And that's why, we brought this draft to you guys to discuss what elements of data you want to see. And then we're going to work backwards from there, because knowing what you guys need and what our IPLA report that we turn in every year, those are the numbers that we need. Then each manager has statistics that they need. Anything else we're going to be looking at and evaluating, do we need to continue to collect this? And so, I'm hearing, resoundingly from John that our, program satisfaction and service satisfaction is really, that's a very important metric that you guys should see in order to be able to make decisions on. And so we might be able to get rid of some other things that we're recording and spend more time on that kind of stuff. So that's, so understanding what you guys want to see first and then working backwards from there and adjusting what we're collecting this is really the first step that all.
Does anybody else have any more thoughts on it? I mean, because I am concerned about that we're going to be asking for too much at any other point. But what we've asked them for so far, any comments or thoughts on that?
Well, I just have a comment that, the numbers, I don't know if these pie charts are absolutely essential because they're redundant in a way to me. But that's to me, and I can't speak for everyone else. I think the first part is really kind of important, and I think visually seeing the line graph is extremely important to me, at least to me. But I do agree. I mean, it's interesting you have a program satisfaction up there, but yet nothing there really. You know?
Well, I think this is just a layout, isn't it? I think it's just a layout right now.
Okay, so that's what you intend to put up there as well. In the same kind of format too, potentially.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be great.
And we may change that program satisfaction. I mean, that's locking it in there. We're working with our programs department and our information technology department to automate some of this
Yeah.
and to make that collection of data as simple as possible. Also, part of this will save us time because right now we're creating 3 different spreadsheets or tools that we're showing you guys, and trying to consolidate it down to one will save us time. And so moving this way will help us to be a little bit more efficient with those.
So we'll learn to go along.
And then Mary had a comment.
I'm wondering if you might ever consider instead doing a semi-annual or annual program survey instead of the satisfaction level, because when we ask current participants, we're only getting current customers. So we're only getting a small portion of the customer pie. There might be other customers in our district that don't like what we offer, or we don't offer anything interesting to them. And then also I think surveys after a program lose a significant amount of people because they're out. They're done. They have attended. That is what their interest is.
So,
They have stayed for the completion of the program, or that they walked out halfway.
so I like where you're going, and I understand where you're going. But I guess the question that I have is then what does it look like? You know, what does the satisfaction survey, you know, every 6 months look like? If we're not, I see, yes, you know, where people aren't giving information after the specific program, but what are you talking about for every 6 months? Are you talking about a conglomeration of all that data? Or are you talking about that every 6 months we're doing some type of bigger survey of customers?
I think it could be every 6 months or once a year, just in general of customers. If we're really concerned about if we're offering the right type of programs. I also think attendance or desire to register and showing up, because we do get a lot of no-shows, is indicative of how popular, how satisfied people are about the programs.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you were asking like semi-annually, would you ask customers you know who have attended various programs and say, we know you've attended these programs, please tell us over this past 6 months, which ones did you like the best, whatever you did, so you could get an accumulative sense, which ones did you not like? I wonder sometimes, because I think you're right, if we ask immediately after the program, you lose a lot of people, and you don't, you know, a lot of times you appreciate something after a while, after you listen to something, and you say, wow, I really remember some really good stuff, because we do have some good programs.
Or we offer, let's say, cooking programs, right? So we know those are popular, and we can offer those until, you know, every single day that we can do them. So to me, that shows interest in that particular product. If we offer something that no one shows, no one registers, it's not a product that people are interested in. I mean, granted, you could give it a few times to see if people need to learn more about it and become introduced to it, but I do think we know what our most popular programs are by the amount of people who register and how many times we need to hold them.
I think, and John, I tell you, man, one comment real quick. One thing I do want to make sure that we're not getting into though is that we're not getting too much into the minutia. Because I know as far as programs go, you're looking at all this information to the side, cooking classes, or you know, programs. You know, those are important. We don't want to necessarily get into that type of minutia. And if I'm saying this out of line, by the way, trustees, please correct me. But I think what we want to do is we just want to know that overall, are we satisfying the requirements of what people in the village want? You know, more of an overview than really the minutia. John?
Right, and I agree with that, Greg. I don't care how you do your market research, Mike. I care that you do market research. And right now, the materials that are presented to me don't indicate that we're doing a thorough job of market research. and I'll just use the examples that I have in the past in terms of measuring and reporting customer satisfaction on major programs and events, which it needs to be done. It has to become part of our culture.
So John, what I'm hearing from you is kind of, going back to Mary's original statement here about, a 6-month review. You don't necessarily, your concern is you're not necessarily want to see everything that's going on. You just want to know that and I know we are doing a lot of this work. You just want to see it. You want to have some idea of what's going on.
Right.
Okay.
You want a result of that market research, because our staff do a lot of different metrics to determine what programming we offer. And we do have popular programs. And so, I think they do a thorough job of market research. Our reporting after the fact is maybe not as thorough as.
Exactly.
I think all that's being asked for is just every once in a while an overview, just kind of say, hey, this is what we've been doing, where we're going. I don't necessarily.
Not every once in a while. It has to be a systematic approach to measuring and reporting.
Well, and that's fine, John. And I'm not saying ad hoc, just whenever, we're willy-nilly or whatever, or we use phrases or old phrases. Just, yes, it can be every quarter or every 6 months or something like that. But as long as we know that there's a systematic approach that's going on, it's being covered. I think, does that make sense?
Methodology.
A methodology, or just a proof of the methodology that's being done. Does that make sense to everybody, or is anybody got any points against that? Anyone? Okay. And then the schedule for the suggestion topics. I mean, I had no issues with any of those topics that were on there. Get a chance to look at it. I think they're all fine.
Programming is in June, so I would be able to give you a little bit more background on the methodology.
Yes.
Speak for that.
Yes. Sounds like perfect time for it. Okay, anything else on that one? All right, let's go on to our last item then, item 7, culture of inclusion. So before Mike starts talking about this, one thing I just want to point out, obviously there's been a lot going on in our country. And we did put out, I don't know if everybody remembers, we did with the whole issue when the George Floyd issue came up, we did put out a statement to that effect. So Mike and staff are talking about putting out another one. What I wanted to do is kind of bring this up to kind of everybody's thoughts on how to approach that, or if there's any specific things that we want to put in there. Because what we don't want to do is we want everybody to know, our thoughts, and we're inclusionary, and we're where our thoughts are regarding all this. We don't necessarily want to react to everything, single thing is going on. Hopefully that doesn't sound like I'm belittling what's going on, because I don't mean that whatsoever. But I want us to make sure that we get this point out to everybody, where we stand and what we feel as a board and as a library. If anybody's got any comments or thoughts regarding that.
Well, I think statements like this are part of our culture of inclusiveness. And inclusiveness is in good times and in happy times and in tragedy. So I have no issue with this statement whatsoever in light of what's going on in our country. And I think it actually shows that we are a very prudent, responsible, sensitive member of our community. That's it.
I concur. I think we need to be responsive to this. I just feel that we have to make a statement. It's consistent with what we've done already, so I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback. Like, I think it's important that we, in situations like this, that our community hears from us, that we are still committed to the inclusion and diversity for our community and for this library. So like, I really find this to be very important. George Floyd was a year ago already, like, I don't have the dates exactly, but like, this is a new situation that came about. Not that it's new by any stretch of the imagination, but it was something that people are wrought over. And I think it needs to be, we do have a variety of peoples in this community, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that we stand with them.
John?
Yeah, and I'm all on board. I think it's even more important that we lead because in all the conversations we had, going all the way back to the December board meetings or whenever these board meetings were, we know that the library is the standard for DEI in the village of Arlington Heights. And so it's paramount that not only that we make these statements, that we make them timely and boldly. And I would, my challenge to us as a board is to find ways to do this more timely and more boldly so that we're setting the standard for the village that other public entities have to follow. And in the absence of us doing it, who will? So my inclination is to say, to give a little bit more flexibility if at all possible, or to fast track this kind of stuff moving forward so that we're as timely and as bold as we can possibly be to establish the standard that we see that's appropriate for the village.
And just so everybody knows, by the way, Mike has had this idea for a while, but I wanted him to bring it to the council for all of us to kind of just hear what was going on. So Mike has been wanting to react to this, but I was the one that stepped that.
I would concur with John that we should be reacting quicker in the future.
Okay.
I don't know that I think it should wait for a count necessarily. I think that's part of leading. And I think we can certainly have him send us a draft of something on our email and get it out quicker. I would not wait for meetings anymore. That's my only comment.
I agree with Deb on this, and I mean, we have a marketing department, right? We have. They're all already, like they've written this, I'm assuming, or worked together on it. We don't need to, I mean, I think we could all chime in over email, and if it needs to come to the board, then we can do that, right?
Okay. All right.
I'm seeing you go like this, so I don't know, like, I'm speaking out of line, I apologize.
Well, going back and forth on email is not appropriate for the open meetings act. So, I can send you guys a draft so you can see it before we put it out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And
Okay.
Shannon has the credit for it.
Thank you, Shannon.
All right, very good. Any more comments on that one? Thoughts? All right, thanks everybody. I guess we are to our famous other. At the ALA conference, June 23rd to the 29th. Is that going to be virtual or is that going to be virtual?
Virtual.
So let us know if you want us to register you, you can contact Janet and she'll get you registered.
And there's things coming up. So there's an ILA workshop coming up on April 17th about the equity, diversity, and inclusion. That's what we're talking about. So if you want to see that, I think that's something. I think that's something really good. I watched what they had last month for. Of course, I couldn't watch it live, but I watched a recording of it about the whole COVID situation and how libraries are doing it. And we're doing a lot of things very similar to what other libraries are. We're all playing on the same page. But just kind of keep, if you want to see that one, if you haven't registered for it, let Janet or Julie know. We got our next board meeting on the 20th. There is another trustee workshop at a boot camp on May 15th. So just keep that in mind too.
I have a suggestion on that. We should probably make sure that the trustee elects know about that boot camp. Because that's going to be right around so we should probably make sure they know.
Yeah.
So whoever gets elected tomorrow, we need to reach out to them and see if they can get involved with that. That would be probably extremely helpful for them.
Yeah, actually, so, Julie, Janet, and I have been talking about that, and because they aren't going to be sworn in until after that. But we've already found out the ILA is like fine.
Yeah, they can go.
They can go.
We've done it in the past.
Yeah, we've already talked about that. So that was good. But yeah, good point there.
When will we get the results?
Usually it's this.
Tomorrow night.
It will be live?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they won't be certified.
They won't be
though.
Oh, be certified, no, but,
Until about the second week of May,
Pardon?
A lot of people are failing.
second week of May. is
Yeah.
usually
yeah,
certified.
but you'll know pretty much tomorrow night.
Yeah, just not certified till after the next board meeting, that's what it's working, is the meeting after the board meeting. Anything else?
There's something just to reference the public commentary about the bystander training. We are doing a bystander training for our supervisors and having discussion on April 7th. So that's all the supervisors in the library. So just.
Okay, we have a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good meeting. Well done.
Good to have you here, Andy.